I'll try this again.
To end up doing it. And so that case, he's got to tell him, I have a permit, because he's going to go in his pocket in front of the officer, go somewhere in it to get it. It's for the protection of all. If you are carrying, you have not applied for anything. We don't necessarily requiring them to present your license or anything. So we have an affirmative duty to end up then telling, says, you know, I have a gun in the car. If he sees it, that's different. And so this is just totally different. I think the intent is very good. I think it's just hard to end up carrying it out. And I know that someone wants to come behind me. If no one else is going to come, anybody else going to talk? Respectfully, I move the table.
I'm sorry, the motion is to table the amendment. Those in favor of tabling the amendment would say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The amendment is tabled. Senator from Berkeley, Senator Grooms, what purpose do you rise, sir?
Mr. President, the Constitutional Subcommittee of the Finance Committee is meeting in the upstairs room. I ask unanimous consent that the membership of Senator Young, Senator McElveen, Senator Fanning, Senator Goldfinch, and Senator Bright Matthews be allowed to vote from the balcony.
Is there objection to the unanimous consent request that those senators outlined be, while they're in the meeting, be able to vote from the balcony? I hear no objection. It's so ordered. Thank you, Senator. Mr. Chairman. Reading clerk will please publish the next amendment.
Next amendment is amendment number 9 by Senator Jackson, previously carried over. Amendments to Bill Section 3.
Senator from Richland, Senator Jackson, what purpose
Might
do
help
you
if I
rise?
had a
Thank you, Mr.
moderator
President. I
in
have
here
a
to help
unanimous
me.
consent request.
State your request.
The
That
problem
that
is,
we
I'm doing this
withdraw
by
the amendment.
myself. So
There's objection to the unanimous
can't do
consent
anything.
request that the
unless I have a
amendment be
wingman
withdrawn.
here,
I hear no objection
I
to
can't
that.
do anything.
So ordered. It's withdrawn. Reading clerk will publish the next amendment.
Amendment number 40 by Senators Hembry, Hutto, Tedder, and Matthews, previously carried over. Amendments to Bill adds a new section.
Senator from York, Senator Clymer, what purpose do you rise, sir?
Thank you, Mr. President. When this, after Senator from Ori explained this amendment last time, I was corresponding with my solicitor, got my questions answered, and that's
Move for
ready.
move for adoption. Move for adoption. Those in favor would please say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. And the amendment is agreed to. Stand at ease momentarily. Senate is in order. Reading clerk will publish the next amendment.
Next amendment is number 43 by Senator Tedder. Amendments to Bill adds a new section to read.
Senator from Charleston, Senator Tedder, what purpose do you rise, sir?
Explain the amendment.
You're recognized. Explain your amendment. Senator from Charleston.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, this amendment simply just provides what it does is it provides the FBI with additional time to complete a background check on a potential firearms purchaser. Currently, the way the law is under the Brady Act, if a person is purchasing a weapon and they do a background check, 90% of the time, the background checks come through immediately. However, there are those times where there's a delay. And under current federal law, if that background check does not come back within 3 days, that person is still allowed to sell the firearm. The problem with that is what we've seen is that 9 times out of 10, if the background check does not come back within 3 days, when it does come back, those persons are flagged as to not be able to have a firearm. So what this does is extends it to say that if a background check has not been completed after 10 business days, the dealer must recontact NICS to conduct the background check. And if another 10 business days passes and they haven't received a response, then the transfer or sale may proceed.
No. You're trying to get around the law.
Senator from Spartanburg, Senator Martin, what purpose do you rise, sir?
To respectfully make a point of order
State your point.
that under our Rule 24, that this is not germane.
Under Rule 24. Anyone else wants to speak to the point of order? Senator from Charleston?
Yes, Mr. President. I believe this is germane. This is dealing with the currently there are background checks given under federal law. This just extends that and closes the Charleston loophole. It doesn't add
There is
any
no
new
Charleston
provision.
loophole.
All it does is extends the background check period for the FBI to be able to conduct those. Again, within 3 days right now, if it doesn't come back, a firearms dealer is allowed to sell that weapon. The problem is, most times, if it doesn't come back immediately, that person is later on flagged as to not being able to carry or purchase a firearm. And so this just extends that to provide the
No.
FBI with a crucial extended time to make that happen. I believe it's appropriate under this constitutional carry, which again still requires by federal law a background check. So this just goes in line with that.
Anyone else wish to speak to the point of order? Stand at ease momentarily. Senator from Charleston, Senator Campson.
Yield.
You want to? I'll permit exchange with Senator Yield for a question.
Yes.
Senator Yields for question.
I'm not going to address the point of order, but it's my understanding that after the 3 days, the background check process stops at the federal level. That's what the FBI's done. I think that was I think the senator from Darlington knows that. He was involved in the litigation over the Manual 9, and Justice Gergel, there was a really good order that kind of lays bare how terrible the FBI is with these background checks. But it's my understanding after the 3rd day, even if you extend it 5 days or 10 days, nothing else is going to happen after day 3. It's just done. This is really a federal, that's my understanding. Do you have a different understanding? Because that is my understanding with regards to these background checks.
Well, my understanding is that in certain situations, the background check had not been or is not completed within 3 days. If under current law, if it's not completed within 3 days, the sale can proceed.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the FBI's
Senators,
negligence, really, because they just stop any kind of checking after 3 days is over. I think that's what came out in the evidence.
Senators to suspend. I'm prepared to rule on the point of order. That point of order is sustained.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. We have another amendment. The reading clerk will read.
Next amendment is amendment number 44 by Senator McLeod. Moves the bill adds a new section to read.
Senator from Richland, Senator McLeod, what purpose do you rise?
To explain the amendment.
You're recognized on your amendment.
Okay, I'm gonna have to leave for a little bit, so I'll let this go in the background. Hopefully, it doesn't fuck up again. We'll see what happens.
The senator from Richland.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues in Richland County, in 2022, we had 472
She's a registered
stolen
independent,
guns.
which means
guns
she's a
that were
Democrat
typically stolen out of people's cars.
because she
In
couldn't get elected as a
2023,
Democrat.
We had 385 stolen
Anyway,
guns.
I'll see you later.
In 2022, we had 37 homicides, and all of those homicides were committed with guns. In 2023, we had 27 in Richland County alone. And so this amendment, all it does is, just as we cover our automobiles, our homes, our apartments, our health, all this amendment does is requires gun owners to insure their weapons, their firearms. And we've talked a lot over the last week or two about responsible gun ownership. And these numbers just here in Richland County prove that there are some irresponsible gun owners as well throughout the state. So my amendment would help to ensure that gun owners follow safe practices, avoid risky decisions, and assume responsibility for their weapons. Move for adoption.
Senator from Spartanburg, Senator Martin, what purpose do you rise, sir?
To make a point of order,
State your point.
under our rules, this is in a different code. Under our rules, under Rule 24, it's in a different code section and adds new material. So I think it's not germane.
Anyone else wish to speak to the point?
I'd like to speak to the
Senator from Richland is recognized to speak on the point.
So if this bill passes, we're putting guns in the hands of 18-year-olds. I get that it's a different code section, but where is the responsibility? How is this not reckless? If we are putting guns in the hands of 18-year-olds in South Carolina with no license required, no training required, how will they know how to handle that gun responsibly? And for the gun owners who are older than 18 even, we insure everything in this country, not just in this state. We have to insure our cars, our homes, in some cases, our personal effects, jewelry, health. Why is it not appropriate for us to also cover our firearms and make sure that they don't get into the wrong hands? So I believe it is germane for that reason.
I'm prepared to rule on the point of order. The point of order is sustained.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. There are no further amendments. The pending question is third reading of the bill. Senator from Horry, Senator Rankin, what purpose do you rise, sir? You're recognized on the bill. Senator from Horry.
Thank you,
Senator
ladies
Rankin.
and gentlemen of the Senate. We have weathered many an hour. Is it tomorrow yet? It is today. Soon it'll be tomorrow. Yesterday might have been the longest day we've had here in quite a while. And I'll assure you, my intention is not to belabor this day longer than it takes me to share a few comments with you about this bill. And I want to commend Senator from Spartanburg on your persistence in pressing and persuading and about to create the policy, at least of this Senate. And I want to go back just a moment with you all as the chair of the committee that was blessed to have the title that this bill rests within, and the efforts by the senator from Spartanburg to dislodge this bill from that committee over the last year or so or two. Senator Martin, Senator from Spartanburg, said he'd been working on this for 15 years. I don't know what year that started, but I started paying attention to this when it became a committee, Judiciary Committee assignment. And those many years ago, Senator from Georgetown, y'all might recall, this is how long ago this effort began in earnest over here, was the subcommittee chairman within the Judiciary Committee itself that the next day was going to have a subcommittee on the bill. The persistence or the persuasion, I'll call it pouncing at a perfect opportunity with my absence, going to see my daughter in Greenville at the governor's school. We're talking some time back because she, I sensed, needed a parent to come. I leave and I roll to Greenville, and I'm listening to the Senate as the weird folk in this body do when we're not here. And if you say you don't do it, you are not being honest. But I hear the effort to dislodge and recall that bill from the full committee that passed narrowly, and it did not have a subcommittee that next day, again, which was within his right to do. And so again, I compliment him for that persistence. Now, it bypassed what effectively I think, and we'll talk about here in a moment, that we have done thereafter and give it our due diligence and try to, as best we can, hear from folks. But that was then. And then we come to another session where, to the senator from Spartanburg's credit, he dutifully writes to all, and as we all do to each other that chair committees or chair subcommittees, a request to have the bill assigned and considered. And so we did that last year. Recall, those of you who served on that subcommittee, and to the senator from York, who is, we've seen and heard much from on this topic, conducted, if you will recall, those of you would not know that except the senator from York, a wonderfully balanced and fair hearing of this bill. Of note that I will point out to you all was another assigned bill to that subcommittee, which was the standalone bill that we, by a vote of 24-19, rejected the amendment from the senator from Charleston, and that to give us what we have uniformly heard from law enforcement, that which they wanted and that which they asked for, and that is enhanced penalty on gun law violations. That bill last year in that subcommittee, to the deference and discretion of the subcommittee itself, I'm not assailing their work, but they did not take that bill up, and they focused solely on the bill that we have before us, and that being the grand bargain that includes something that no one in law enforcement has asked for and no one in law enforcement wants. And that is this permitless carry bill. And so we have labored these last few days. Can I ask now, is it tomorrow yet now? Anyway, hours and hours and hours talking about the balance between our state's current law and where some want to take us, and some do not. But we have heard from lobbying groups how we are an outlier in the country, how we are treading on the rights of our law-abiding citizens, and we are sacrificing our people compared to other states. And I have heard from a number of you. You've all gotten door hangers, perhaps. I am a gun rights sellout. Perhaps some of you other senators are too. I am one who is against the Constitution because of my position. I am against your God-given inalienable rights given to you at birth because I support not their politics, but our police. So forgive me for not standing with those who are from, Texas, Austin, Texas. I don't think I have any constituent in Austin, Texas. This last year, the Young Americans for Liberty, 3267 B Cave Road, Suite 107-65. I've never been to Austin. I don't think I've ever met a Young American for Liberty any more than the younger groups in here. And I'm looking at mostly the pages
All right,
now.
I'm back for a little while.
No offense.
I'll have to go
And
away
anybody
again in a little
else,
bit.
Senator from York, that's got the Liberty placard or lapel pin, I've never met anybody from Austin, Texas, and I wonder whether if, just like the dark money mailers that you've all gotten, I know of a few, where one was addressed from a place in the upstate where we sent somebody to find out what was at that address. It was an empty building beside a pawn shop. And we found out through the owner of that strip shopping center, he'd never heard of, never rented to that group, mailing out things to my area to say, Rankin, worst thing since COVID. Rankin, caused the pandemic. Rankin, standing in your way of freedom. That's fine, folks. I'm not assailing our First Amendment rights to do and say about anybody whatever you want to do or say, but be a little more honest about it. But you don't have to be, because you get to hide behind the dark money and the group efforts that come to say and push and pull us to do what we want them to do, again, what they want us to do. That's fine. I'm a big boy. I can withstand the assaults, and I have been there, done that before, and perhaps this will be my last stand. And perhaps this time the dark money will win, and perhaps this time the outside politics of pushing us to do something will work. But I rest easy. I rest comfortably. And I rest at night knowing that I am standing not with the persuaders, not with the pushers, but I'm standing with the police officers in this state who, to a person, to an agency, to a department within this state, has said to me uniformly, today included, after we adopted last night, and I voted for the amendment, trying to make better a bill in hopes of giving the police officers cover to say, Rankin, we're for it. Today, with these enhancements that we have tried to make, I haven't heard a police officer say to me yet, Luke, we want it. We're asking for it. Like the governor's sing-song in his re-election night, I like it. I love it. Give me some more of it. The country music song, help me somebody, you know what I'm talking about? It's not by Shaggy. Anyway, y'all know what I'm talking about. He didn't sing it nearly as well as some have sang. I won't be one of them that'll try. But point being, even today, concerns. We are muddying the water. We are not clarifying for them. The exchange with this former police officer, retired, now our brother in the Senate, and others today, Senator, the former solicitor. We are not creating clarity. We are creating uncertainty. We are creating more of a morass of who knows what you can do to accomplish
Sit down
what?
and shut up.
To make us like the other states who say, and the proponents say, we want to be just like. And so I'm up here just, again, to talk a little bit about this. And I want to, if I can, Mr. Clerk, Mr. President and the clerk, I want to just show 2 or 4 folks that I want you to be reminded of, the faces of.
As Senator, as that's being provided, I would say that this has been previewed under our requirement.
And so if we can go, I don't know what order they're in, but let me start with the Conway City Police Chief. All right, one more. I'm sorry. One more. All right, right there. The first one, the gentleman with the glasses. And that is Chief Long, City of Conway. I'm not going to read verbatim their testimony. I'm not going to play, because we can't, under our rules, play their testimony. But I want you just to see the face and not mine. I don't want my face to be the voice of the opposition that I've heard from. And I dare say the faceless people in Austin, Texas, that aren't going to come here to tell you what the people that we have hired and entrusted to carry out the laws that we pass have said. First voice, again, face belongs to Chief Long. He's been in law enforcement since 1986. He respects our state. He's a product of our state, born and raised here, and prides himself on being a South Carolinian, to the point of that balance between our laws, our rights, and lawful abiding gun ownership and gun safety for their families. His belief, and this was a pretty key term, I thought, that I'd never heard before. My belief is that in our community, we all operate under a guideline of social contracts. If y'all are on that subcommittee, you've heard this, and again, you're not going to hear a verbatim regurgitation of it, but he analogized that social contract to the driver's license that we have and that we're tested to see whether we have safe driving proficiency, hunter safety as well. The goal being, as the senator from Charleston talked about the other day, with the quail hunt or the dove shoot, loading the gun, where do you aim the gun? All folks within the hunting world, the driving world, and now voting safety world have to have and operate under the same guidelines. And so his point, again, was the benefit of and the necessity of the requirement of minimum standard training. Again, I'm not going to talk about all these things we've talked about, but again, the law. What is the law? Where can you possess? Where can you present? When do you have to stand down? When under the Castle Doctrine? When under the various other iterations of stand your ground? But more importantly, what training they have to safely operate that gun. And so his point, without training, people will take for granted that if I'm allowed, I can do what I want to do. And so that social contract, whether hunting, boating, driving, pick your other example, that's our obligation. Next picture is Chief Prock from the city of Myrtle Beach. Again, very, very forceful personality, very forceful statements that she made. And again, just to show you who I'm listening to, that public safety is a shared responsibility, and that our role, just like theirs in our communities, our trusting and in charging them to carry out, it is a shared responsibility. And her position on this bill was that the training that they pursue, and y'all have heard it, we've heard it over and over again in here. Train, train, train. 4 times a year, SLED, the various guns that they use, train. And so my kind of joke, but we are effectively holding, with the passage of this bill, our lay folk, our everyday folk, to a totally different standard than we expect out of our law enforcement officers. And her point is that we are asking the public no longer to be required to train and expecting the same result out of them. They ain't gonna train. They don't have to train. And so her view, again, the city of Myrtle Beach's police chief, the rights and freedoms of everyone are supported, but the safety of our communities needs to be the forefront. Next face that I want you just to momentarily focus on, and this, I think, Chief Stewart, who was representing the South Carolina Police Chiefs Association, and focused on what I've heard, and you all have heard, that our SLED director, Chief Keel, has said, we are the envy of the country with the law that we currently have, and the ability to protect not only the public, but to protect law enforcement. But they train, he references the 4 types of weapons that they train with, and that they train day and night. This shots fired discussion, I had not heard of that before that subcommittee hearing, where, again, in Anderson, I believe, they've got that program, technology, again, the area, shots fired, they key in on it with other technology, cameras, again, the ability to try to get to an area quicker, that are enhancements to safety of our communities. And not just them, but the safety of the police officers as well. And so his point, again, in unison with the other 2 chiefs of police, is that we need to be able to expect the same out of our law-abiding citizens, the proficiency in how to handle a gun. And then finally, last picture, that is Skip Holbrook, Columbia Police Chief, Columbia Police Department. And again, very briefly, the takeaway from him, uncharted and unclear territory if we pass this law. Personal concern as a citizen and concern as from a police chief's perspective. No training requirement, no minimum standard will do nothing but lead to chaos and increased danger to them. And that's all from the slides, Mr. Mr. President. Thank you for
Yes, sir.
displaying those.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
So who are we listening to? And what is our goal? And I'm not saying the word cave, Senator Orangeburg, and that's an adjective, perhaps it applies, but just like these officers have said, we are coming at this with the best of intentions. I don't malign the proponents of this bill. I don't malign the folks from Austin, Texas. Your desire to come into South Carolina and do what you have done successfully with money in other states. But who are we to hear from, and who are we to believe if we don't believe those faces, those voices, and dare I say a few more, because in Horry County, as I referenced the other day, a letter from the Law Enforcement Officers Association dated December 5th. And I can't read, but let me just highlight. The repeal would remove the very standard we have in this state to keep our community and visitors safe. Requirements for training and background checks alone provide a framework to assist in the lawful use of weapons and the purchase and possession. They oppose, in the strongest possible terms, for reasons of public safety, our doing away with required training in this bill. And I said it from my desk. I won't read every name, but I dare say to anyone who would like to see, not one of the misguided, perhaps, misinformed, but duly elected, duly appointed, duly hired, and continuing in service with their own training, officers from Horry and Georgetown County have said, folks, keep the minimum standards. That's the law enforcement word. And again, who do I hear? Who do I listen to? And who do you hear? And who should you listen to? That's your own walk. That's up to you. And I dare say I don't intend to or believe that I'm going to persuade one vote different than has been cast thus far. But I think we owe it to the people outside in our homes, in the balcony, and those listening, perhaps the 12 that are listening to us right now. We owe the honest truth to them about what we're about to do and what it's going to do, and own it. Now, the reverse of that is, Rankin, it ain't going to be that bad. It ain't going to be that bad. Pay no attention to them. I invoked the Wizard of Oz the other day, the line. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Listen to the big bad wolf out there, the big bad Oz out there. Pay attention to him. And so that big bad wolf out there tells us it ain't going to be that bad. They're not that many. It's not going to be that big of a problem. Law enforcement will get over it. They'll work it through. It'll work out. It ain't that big of a deal. And this is not Luke Rankin anti-Second Amendment right. I believe in it. I don't, but my wife does have a CWP. Any of you who know
No,
Lindsay
you don't believe in it. I don't
would not
believe
be any more surprised to know that. Not Annie, get your gun. Lindsay, get your gun. She don't need no gun. But I hunt. My brother hunts. I love the right to bear arms. But to the point that, and I'm not going to go through ad nauseum, but the point that the reality of this bill being called something suggesting that anyone daring to say or question or pause in the adoption of it, that it is a constitutional right that we are infringing upon by
The right of the people to keep and
insisting
bear
on
arms shall
law
not be
enforcement
infringed.
being
How
given
hard
the
is that to
tools
fucking
that
know?
they so deathly and
How hard is
fatally
it to learn
and
the
desperately
definition?
are
Really?
calling for
Just sit down and
is
shut up.
not an abridgment of the Constitution. Chief Justice Massey from Edgefield quoted. Chief Justice Harpootlian from Richland, again, the very case perhaps, I don't know if it was this one with Anthony Scalia, but again, the law says, the Supreme Court says, you have a right, effectively, like Chief Long said, a social contract. The law requires certain things out of you. The Constitution requires the allowance of certain things, but they are not mutually exclusive. And so the Supreme Court has defined with precedent the right to do what we have done before. So the law doesn't say it's unconstitutional to keep South Carolina's existing CWP. If that were so, folks, if this were the unconstitutional carry bill, why hasn't it been overturned since we passed it 20-some years ago? Why hasn't someone from Texas come down here to challenge the constitutional veracity of that law 20 years ago? It is because it ain't unconstitutional. And so no aspersions to those who believe that this is a constitutional right. Some of you know better that the Constitution doesn't say no states, you don't have a social contract, and no states you can't require. So in the vein of, and I'm going to wrap up here in just a second, I want to hearken back to the exchange with Senator from Edgefield and my sincere endorsement of and stated from my desk as I was asking him, the laudable goal of training and the laudable goal of giving the officers the ability to assess before they get into a mess with someone bearing. And that is the topic of training. And so we are undoing the requirement. We're going from 21 to 18. Some are offended by that on its face. Perhaps that's not as bad as the fearful folk would suspect. There is a disconnect. Effectively, the federal government allows 21. So there's a little difference, 18 versus 21. I don't see that as a big problem. But what is the biggest offense here and the biggest problem that officers tell me that they will suffer loss of lives is the lack of mandatory training. And so my exchange with the senator from Edgefield, did you know, I will remind y'all, after doing away with their laws, just like we are on the cusp of doing here, despite our effort to incentivize with a carrot or a stick, the real reality will be you will see a dramatic decline in those who will say, the law doesn't require me to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm not assailing those who will hereafter not want to do it under the belief that that's not the law, therefore they don't have to abide it. Good people, smart people will do it anyway. Smart, good people already with their families have great training, I'm sure. But if passed as prologue in other states, folks, Georgia, drop of 60%, Oklahoma, 54, Texas, 43, Florida, 64, Ohio, 71, Tennessee, 53% decrease. I voted for that amendment because I think that makes this bill better, but it does not speak to the minimum requirements being a requirement. We are hoping that people will be their best. We are hoping that people will be as trained as our law enforcement officers are. But that's a big hope, folks, and it's a big bet. And perhaps time will prove that there will be no problems with the lack of training. But you can't ignore, in those states that have passed this, and the increased incidents of homicide and gun-related violence and gun-related injury, you cannot escape the trajectory of those statistics. And so, look around. Has it worked? And what do you look to determine how has it worked? And so either the stats are wrong, and in Indiana, where press coverage says over these stern objections of law enforcement, and that is the adjective in the press release, stern objections, stern criticism from their state police superintendent. They did it anyway. And in Indiana, handgun licenses and training dropped. So, Rankin, you're ignoring half of the gain here. You're ignoring the win here. The governor, again, in the State of the State last week, asked for what? Enhanced penalties for gun law violations. He didn't ask for open carry without permit. Senator Campson, senator from Charleston, asked this body for enhanced penalties of repeat offenders with gun violations. 24 of you said no. 19 said yes. And so we've got now effectively, respectfully, but honestly, a gun to our heads to pass a bill to give law enforcement something they don't want, haven't asked for, in exchange for something that they desperately need. That's the prerogative of a legislative body. Give them not what they want, give them what we want. And so when we pass this bill, and when we go to our homes, and when we talk to our brothers and sisters in our churches, in our home communities, but more importantly at our police stations, our sheriff's offices, ask them, where were they? Why didn't they come to Columbia when these posted, noticed hearings were taking place? Why didn't they come and tell you that they were against it? Maybe they'll tell you they were for it. But more importantly, to me in Horry County, why didn't you come and tell me that you were for it? Where were you? And so, again, by default, the only four faces I've got, two of whom are in my area, one in Anderson, one in Columbia, took the time, took it upon themselves to say what you know in your heart of hearts is the truth. You are jeopardizing us, you're hamstringing us, and you are cramming something down our throats legally that we don't have a clue how to enforce. You have not clarified anything. You have muddied the water. And now you're asking me, Mr. or Mrs. Law Enforcement Officer, to step into a situation where I don't know who's on my side and put myself at risk of harm, injury, or death, and expect what Chief Prox said, the same results of their training, their expert, repetitive, continuing gun education out of somebody that from now on won't have one iota idea other than their self-motivation to learn, to do, and to be safe. And God, I pray that everyone who picks up a gun will do just that. And to the CWP holders right now, 40 some odd thousand of you, God bless you for the training. And I hope that I'm wrong, that these stats prove in South Carolina totally differently, that we have truly incentivized.
It's more CWP
But I'll be
holders than
shocked
40,000.
if it is
I
the
can tell you that
case.
right now.
So, folks, I'm going to wrap up and urge you not to vote the way Luke Rankin votes, but talk to your officer. And again, I made the point about every law enforcement officer that I saw come into Columbia to testify. I don't know whether they're under oath or not. Would their testimony be any different? Are they recognizing just the political expediency? And is it going to jeopardize them? And if they'll tell you straight, like the sheriffs have done, the police chiefs have done, Senator, you know, they're not going to be happy, because what we've done is not listen to them. And we're going to stand with our men in blue. We're going to stand with our women in blue. Folks, we stand with them only when it's convenient. We listen to them only when it's convenient. And that is a travesty in our state. We want to hear from you when it's convenient. We don't want to give you what you want unless it's convenient. And folks, we are putting our best in blue in harm's way and making them
All right,
take something
I'm
that
gonna
they
leave this
don't
running.
want and have not asked for. But that is our choice. And so we all get a vote. God bless this country. God bless my ability to come speak to each of y'all. And God bless what we do and who we're here to protect, who we're here to reward, and who we are here to stand by. And for me, that's my law enforcement. That's my police chief. That's my sheriff from Horry County, not from Texas.
Senator from Darlington, what purpose do you rise, sir? While the senator from Darlington comes to the podium, Senator from Richland, Senator Jackson, what purpose do you rise, sir?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to ask for unanimous consent that the words of the senator from Horry be added to the journal.
Without objection, the words from Senator Moore reads that while the senator comes to the podium, Senator from Orangeburg, Senator Stevens, what purpose do you rise, sir?
Mr. President, I did have a few questions for the senator from Horry, but I guess
Speak when your term comes.
We relinquish the floor. Thank you. Thank you. Senator from Darlington.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. We had a long day yesterday, and it's been a long time coming for my friend from Spartanburg, my good friend. From the time that we met when he was elected, probably about 2008, I think it was, he talked about this issue, and we've had some long, hard discussions on it, and he knows my background, I know his. I know that he has worked hard on this because he really believes in it. And so, Senator from Spartanburg, congratulations on achieving your work. I know you're trying to serve your constituents, And this was not usual for you to lead the Senate in this way on an issue. You're normally supporting and running your committees and that kind of thing, and others that are in support. Senator from Ori, what a heartfelt message. We hear you, and the people hear you. And I'm reminded of going back and listening over my life and to see how it relates when we come here. We look around these walls and see how things have changed from those that got elected many years ago and how the world looked then and how this body looked then. Then we look at those that served after that, who fell by gun while he was serving here in this chamber. And sometimes I think his name is overused. And I look at those that were leaders amongst us, and some leaders are still here. And we go back and say, it's taking this long for the senator from Spartanburg. What's happened? What's changed? I know McConnell would say, what would Gressett do? I know that when he left, some of us would say, what would he do? I know many of you now look around and say, what would I do? I commend the senator from Edgefield many times because he says, I don't want this place to become Washington, to where we are just divided. And we're just pulling a lever as to what the heartstrings say out in the community or what it does to happen in our district. But I just look into the face of the people that were instrumental in my life and think about what they would do. And sometimes we have to treat these issues with an empty chest cavity, an empty head, and put them on the rail in our desk and sit there with your whole body and face and everything empty and take in all that information from everyone around. And once it all comes in, then you take all those biases that you put out on the rail and on the front of your desk and have received it and put them back into you, and you become that whole person again, representing your area, your values, those that you hear from, those that you have not heard from, and then try to do the best you can. And when we have done that, then maybe we would have done our job. And that's why I applaud the senator from Ori. Your vote hurts you. It could hurt you badly. I appreciate you speaking from your heart and your passion, notwithstanding. When I was a kid, I remember the passing of guns around, not the Daisy BB pistol that I talked about earlier, the 14 shotguns, the 12 gauges, had one little 38 in the house. That was for what I did not know. I stayed away from it. In my own house, my teammate, she's vehemently against guns. I told her, it's a risky world we live in, that we have to have them. She said, you don't have to have that many. I said, but here it is right here. I'm not trying to be funny. If they ever come and get me, here's this gun right here. You shoot them, you shoot me, you shoot everybody. They come and invade my house. That's what we're supposed to do. She said, I don't know if I can do that. I said, you must. That's how strong we believe in protecting our own homes. And then we go back now, and as I listen to go through this process and go through my own life experiences, and I add in a little bit about the law enforcement and will lend a little bit from what the senator from Ori said and lend a little bit from what law enforcement has said. I was there You may have heard the story too many times. In 1979, Dick Harpootlian prosecuted the case. You were not there yet. There were a few others were there when a fellow walked into a USC dorm and shot 7 people. Kevin Johnson was there. Carl Allen was there. You may have been there that night. I was there that night. Senator from, excuse me, we should not be saying last names. Senator from Clarendon, Senator from Greenville. They are older than me, not by much. But I remember Mr. Clerk, Terrell Johnson was killed. Your friend. We're standing there. He shot right here. David Simmons is shot right here. Wonder what would happen if I had a gun. No permit, and police walks in. I want to protect everybody there. And he walks in, he sees me with that gun. Would he shoot me? I don't know, probably. The proliferation. So that's not what we're trying to intend for. But why are we now speaking to which this is what stops good guy with a gun, bad guy with a gun? I froze. I had no idea what was happening or what was going to happen. I fast forward a little bit and learn a little bit. What happens when you act upon appearances? We're going to change the law in this state that you see someone with a gun? I am not so happy with sometimes. I have been successful in cases where a guy reached in his pocket and was shot. I represented the assailant. He looked like he was going for something. Self-defense. State v. Fuller, State v. Davis. So what do we become? I'm just concerned with the proliferation. And I'll move on through it. And I'll tell you something that is really sort of light and good. You mentioned Texas. And my grandfather was a farmer. I always say he told me these stories. Some of them he did, some of them I helped him with. He said a fellow from Texas came to him and said, I got a farm that's really big. He said, well, how big is your farm? He said, well, I can start on one side and get in my truck. Senator from Charleston said it'd take me all day, maybe part the next day, get all the way across the state, all the way across my farm because Texas is such a big place. My grandfather said, well, I used to have a truck like that too. Maybe it's not how big the farm is, but maybe how bad your truck is. And it goes to the perception as to what you see and what others see. Are we protecting ourselves with the Constitution? Because our right to end up having a gun. And how do we balance it with everyone else in society? I will say that our test that we have to end up doing in times like this, once again, is to take care of those that are in the dawn of their lives, and those our children. Those that are in the twilight of their lives, seniors are not able to take care of themselves, and those that are in the shadows of their life, those that have disabilities, hurt, sick, incarcerated, all those things. None of those folks want a gun. Not the children, not the very seniors, can't take care of themselves, and those that are challenged. It goes to another point. I am concerned about all of these shootings that we end up having for those that have challenges. And it may be mental, I got to make sure I say this, disabilities, some no fault of their own. What happens when they get their hands on the gun? They don't have to go through probate. We don't have to go and see if that's can end up passing muster. It is just something else. And then finally, I'm not going to be very long, that what we have here, and it really doesn't have anything to do with being a proponent for guns, those kinds of things. People love to talk about guns and say what they have. We about to put a bunch of money in it in a free-for-all. We're not talking about AR-15s and all that kind of stuff. But you know what a bullet costs? About 43 cents, 43, 45 cents per bullet. We're getting ready to put some millions of dollars in there and we don't even know. Someone mentioned the fiscal impact as to what it was going to cost. Got to have it by second reading, but we gave it a second reading and carried over all amendments to third. We're going to put money in, and this is a chance to go and have some free shots. 500 rounds of 180 grain, $400. This is from a website I just picked up. There's another 500 rounds, $464. Almost 80, 90 cents a bullet. We're going to train and pay for it. And we got folks all over this state. My dad told me that we couldn't say when I was a kid that we were poor. Senator from Clarendon. We were just broke. And we have a broke state still. Not for the people that's in here, and not in the affluent sections. But we have still a very rural state where people are challenged. We don't have medical care for all. We have an education system that still could use a shot in the arm to end up having, no pun intended, shot. We still have folks that are hungry. We still have teachers that's underpaid, wage earners that are getting small amounts of money. We never addressed minimum wage issues, those kinds of things. Our economic development picture is great in some areas, Senator from Williamsburg, but not in others. We're going to put millions of dollars to end up getting free CWPs. That's challenging. It really is just challenging. Does it really matter to me in my heart as to what happens for people that's carrying guns? I don't know that I have that severe a problem with responsible gun owner carrying a gun. But I do know this. I know that when we use this as a segue for enhancements, for those that are perpetrating upon our society and that are inflicting themselves and conducting criminal behavior upon innocent citizens, I would tell you that is wrong. And we've been down this road before, and we had enhancements. And I think it was in the early 90s, late 80s, Senator from Charleston, where we added enhancements to every case with involving a gun. You know what this Senate did? They watched it as we packed the jails full and then would not pay for it. And then we had no space for them. And we were then crowding them with those that had administrative frailties and faults, to the extent that almost half of our prison population was for nonviolent offenders. And then we had to find a way, because we then had to set the priorities of this body, and we're not going to put resources in there to end up incarcerating people. And here's the problem. Your recidivism was out the roof, because we have to give them incentives to behave, and it did not happen. Senator from Charleston, many others came in and says, folks, we can change this thing around. We can become smart on crime and turn in those with tax burdens into taxpayers, and make certain that those that deserve to be there, we will keep them there. And those that deserve a chance, whenever you have a nonviolent offense, something that is not an infliction upon a person, be able to give them a chance. You know what we did? We changed the laws, and some of that happened. We had almost 27,000 inmates in prison, and now we're down to 15,000. Crime rates have not changed. They've been lower, actually. So then we have to become a better society. So what kind of society do we live in? I'm speaking to the gun issues in here now. A rehabilitative society, a lock them up society. I'm okay with locking folk up, pay for it. Don't crowd one on top of the other. And for the love of everything else, look at what goes on in your county systems and putting that burden on the counties, and we don't end up taking care of it. If you commit a crime, goodbye. I'm okay with that. The issue becomes is that the system that is for all. And when we get there, don't close the prisons and say, I've been doing good. You know, if you build them, we're going to fill them up. Enhancements, you will rarely see the times that this is used, if the front end side of that job is being done. What if I give someone a 30-some-odd year prison term, and by the way, I'm going to give you an enhancement? You think they're going to behave in there? No. Think you ask them to them? Do the case. And so that piece just say that enhancements don't work. And so I'm reminded now, in this January month, now February, of Dr. Martin Luther King. One of his best pieces was the letters from the Birmingham jail. And remember, the people raised Cain when those letters first came out. And the rabbi and all the folks that says, you know, this is wrong, this is crazy, as to what you're doing. And then later on, they came back and said, oh, nonviolence is the way. You were right. Why do we got to wait years later to see whether we understand whether we are right or wrong, when we know that there is a method and a way to be able to carry your gun? And so I don't have a CWP. I keep one in my car and in my truck and in my house and in my play areas. That's fine. I have a way. But now, do I need to pay $5 million, which we don't know if that's it, it's going to be more. Ammunition is going to cost a bunch. There are times when you can't get ammunition. What is it going to cost? Senator from Cherokee, I want to help petition to see, I get it, if there's some quid pro quo as it relates to what we have to spend over here to end up spending over there in the same way that we try to get pushed around because we support the things that we sort of have in common. They did it last year. We're gonna do this for Clemson, we're gonna do this for USC. At the end of the day, we can't just throw it on the wall, folks, just to make a deal. And so as much as I enjoy my friends, and I have not spoken at all during this debate, really, as much of my folks know that I am where I am as it relates to Second Amendment, you know, I'm generally a supporter. As much as you all know, and I listen to a lot, the way that they toss my friend Clemente Pinckney's name around on things, we got to end up doing this in his name. I understand he carried that. I look right there in that chair and say, what would he do? He's a peaceful man. What will we do on these issues as it relates to purchasing guns and that kind of thing? He wouldn't stop us from purchasing guns. That wasn't who he was. He wanted to make sure he tried to do what was right. I heard what was said on the 3-day waiting period. Y'all know we did the case. We know exactly what happened. We've been through this long, long ago. I know what we talk about when we start talking about hate crime bills, enhancements. Enhancements are challenging, but the concept is right. I can tell you who's going to end up getting smacked up upside the head on these enhancements. It's going to be young African-American men and young Caucasian men and others. And most of them going to be broke. They're not going to have the resources. And it is a part of our society that we have not been able to fix. We've just been working at it. Education is the key to doing a lot of that. So in conclusion, I'm not going to vote for this bill. Even though I appreciate what everybody said, that we worked it down and got it as best as we can get it. I think that we don't have to give away millions and millions of dollars so that folks can get a CWP or whatever, so we can end up putting an education training component in there. And the last thing I would leave you with is that two things. One, as the letters from the Birmingham jail made us see, it's good to be on the right side of history. In a historical context, what will it be like when we look back for many years and say, this Senate came in and said, guess what? Everybody get a gun. I got a new grandchild. Light of my life. What is he gonna grow up in? 18. Got my gun, I'm carrying it around with me. I'm gonna go out tonight. Okay. For those that are in the upstate, there's a great speech that the president of Furman University came in when they were integrating schools a long time ago, and it was a big question about academic freedom and whether or not they were going to integrate. Academic freedom was a great balancing test then too, because you can do what you need to do and what you want to do in the name of academic freedom at that point in time. And in this speech, whenever they decided to integrate, in the end, what he said is that, folks, there's a lot of wrong ways to do things right. But there's hardly any right way to do things wrong. I just think we have to be really, really careful, even though I have certain beliefs that are consistent with what it has to do with gun rights. I just don't know and think it's right for our state.
Senator from Richland, Senator McLeod, what purpose do you rise?
To speak on the bill.
You're recognized to speak on the bill. Senator from Richland, Senator McLeod.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, we knew this day was coming. Still doesn't make it any easier. I think what we're doing today is going to turn our state into the Wild Wild West. No license, no training, inadequate background checks. And we can assume that the average gun owner will have no knowledge of current gun laws, since CWPs and the training that comes with it are optional. We can also assume that gun owners will have very little, if any, knowledge or understanding about where they can and cannot carry. There's no language that expressly prohibits racial profiling, although I fought to have that language included yesterday. That's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem for the citizens of our state. It's going to be a problem for law enforcement, as well as citizen vigilantes. And I think about what happened in Georgia with Ahmaud Arbery. There's going to be no gun liability insurance that will require gun owners to assume some semblance of responsibility for properly and safely handling and storing their guns. And yet, we talk about everybody practically being a responsible gun owner. There is no protection or consideration for law enforcement officers who, in most cases, won't be able to tell the good guys from the bad guys. We just debated an amendment that proposed sending between $5 million and $20 million to the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division to help cover the cost of CWPs and to launch a statewide permitless carry campaign. Meanwhile, at SLED, rape kits of South Carolina women and girls sit continue to sit. Some for years, some for decades. They will continue to sit in our cold case files. while our women and girls get no justice because their rape kits are unprocessed, not investigated, forgotten. $5 to $20 million to SLED is what we took all that time discussing and debating. When many of the proponents of this bill are co-signing and celebrating, denying our state's most vulnerable children food during the summer months. $5 to $20 million for SLED. I couldn't believe it. When we've consistently dismantled public education, as we frantically try to find skilled, educated workers to fill the high-paying jobs at Boeing and BMW and now Scout Motors in my area. $5 to $20 million for SLED. We actually spent a lot of time on that yesterday. At the same time that we have consistently refused to expand Medicaid in this state. And we intentionally make working people poorer by paying them wages we know they can't live on. And yet, even as we debate this bill, we are also attempting, some are attempting to cut unemployment pay for those who need and deserve every penny of it. We've listened to colleagues propose enhanced penalty amendments to this bill, while some of our colleagues continue to block us from even debating the bill that would enhance penalties for those who commit hate crimes in this state. I'm going to close by just reminding all of you, not that you need to be reminded, this bill is anti-law enforcement. I think the senator from Orangeburg said it best last night. It is very much anti-law enforcement. It's anti-law abiding citizens, especially law-abiding citizens of color. When my son moved back, when my baby boy graduated from Colorado State University and came home for a while, just long enough for me to get used to him being here, and decided last year, like, Mom, I can't stay here. And I hated to see him go. But today, I'm so glad he went. Because this bill will make it extremely dangerous for him to live here. To give law-abiding citizens and ruthless criminals equal access to guns without a license or training, especially at a time when gun violence is already wreaking havoc across our state and nation. It's senseless, it's reckless, and quite frankly, I believe it's the beginning of the end of any decent quality of life we once knew and enjoyed here in South Carolina. For those reasons and many others, I will definitely be voting against this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Clarendon, what purpose do you rise, sir?
I'd like to be heard on the bill.
You're recognized on the bill. While the senator from Clarendon comes to the podium, Senator from Charleston, Senator Tedder, what purpose do you rise, sir?
Yes, Mr. President, unanimous consent request
State your request.
that the comments from the senator from Darlington and the senator from Richland be added to the journal.
Without objection, they're so ordered. Senator from Clarendon.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
Members, you all probably realize that I've been very, very quiet as we debated this constitutional carry bill, but I've been listening and just kind of making mental notes in my head and jotted down a few things I wanted to emphasize if I could read my own writing. But I want to just begin by saying that it has been noted over and over, and it's been highly recognized that the state of South Carolina has probably the best concealed weapon permit statute in the country. And I agree with that. I do support the Second Amendment. And as I said many times before, my wife and I and my 3 adult children are CWP holders. We went through the classes together. And I feel good about the fact that not only do we have guns, but we have the training and we have the knowledge of the guns. And now we're going for a free-for-all. People can have guns nilly-willy, no permit, no training. And I think that's a recipe for disaster in South Carolina, especially, again, when we have such a strong CWP statute. So we're going to have people that don't understand guns. They don't know how to store guns. They don't know how to be responsible with guns. And I'm not just talking about the 18-year-olds. We have older people, mature people who don't have the knowledge of how to be responsible gun owners because they're not going to be required to have the training. I'm not for, as the senator from Richmond said, spending $5 or $10 million so that people can go and get training if they want it. I think it's important that it should be required. And I know people said, and I'm going to say like other folks said, I'm not a constitutional scholar either. But I believe that we also have other constitutional rights that we are guaranteed that have strings attached to them. We have the right to vote, but we have voter ID laws. I could say, hey, you know, I have a constitutional right to vote. I don't have to give you an ID. I want to vote. We have the constitutional right to freedom of speech, right? But I was taught in high school that I can't go into a theater and yell fire. So there are constitutional rights where we have strings attached. I heard somebody say, we want to be like the other 27 states. That argument don't carry with me because when I say I want to be like the other 48 states that have hate crime, it influences not many people. Then I was talking to some folks the other day, and I said, I don't like the fact that our CWP statute says you have to be 21 years old to get a CWP, but with this particular law, the Constitution carry, you can be 18 years old. It's all Senator Johnson, you know, you can go in the Army 18 years old and look at all the weapons they have. I said, don't come here with that. I said, because when you go into the military, the first thing you're going to have is basic training, and then you're going to have advanced training, and then throughout your whole military career, you're going to be training on this, that, or the other. And I said, the weapons that these 18-year-olds have in the military, that's a controlled environment. The military don't give them weapons and say, okay, go where you want to go with your weapons. It's a controlled environment. So the fact that an 18-year-old can be in the military and have weapons, that doesn't matter to me as far as saying 18-year-olds can have these weapons because of constitutional carry. As I said with the training, y'all, I know people who were killed and I know people who were shot. The senator from Darlington talked about our experience one homecoming weekend when I was a freshman in Carolina. I know he mentioned David Simmons. If I'm correct, David Simmons is still walking around with a bullet in his neck. But I know people who were killed and shot, and they were not even the intended target. They happen to be near the target, and you have folks that can't aim. They just have a gun, they have a beef, and they pull out and start shooting. They can't even aim the gun. So innocent people and their families' lives have been messed up. I don't want to be up here too long because my back is not going to allow it anyway, but I just want to say that, you know, South Carolina, I keep hearing that our biggest industry is tourism. I think that if this bill passes, which it looks like it will, that's going to even be detrimental to our tourism industry. I don't know that a lot of folks are going to want to come to Myrtle Beach or Charleston or Greenville or Hilton Head Island vacationing, and we have people walking around with guns and then walk around with guns with no training, no understanding of how the guns are. So I'm going to close, but I think a lot of, I'm not casting aspersions on anybody, but I think some of us know that this is a bad bill. I've sat here and listened to what I thought were some pretty good amendments that would strengthen the bill and make it a better bill. And as soon as the bill is explained by the amendment is explained by the author, before they can get to their seat, the amendment is voted down. So I think some of us know that this is a bad bill. It's not necessary. It's not good for South Carolina. But I think we think, oh, I'm not gonna worry about the pitfalls of the bill because it's not gonna happen to me. And I say that because I know there have been several bills that have passed in South Carolina because it hit home. And then we wanna react rather than be proactive. And so for those reasons and others that have been articulated, I look forward to voting against the bill also. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Clarendon. The pending question. Senator from Richland, Senator Devine, what purpose do you ask?
Thank you. I'd like to be heard on the bill.
You're recognized on the bill. Senator from Richland.
Thank you, Mr. President, and to ladies and gentlemen of the Senate. I'm not going to be up here long. I echo many of the sentiments by the other senator from Richland, Senator McLeod. But I just have to say, as I was campaigning and getting ready to join the Senate, the biggest issue in my community, in my district, was about guns. But I didn't have people asking me for constitutional carry. I had people asking me, how are you going to make our communities safer? Just in 2022, just in one zip code in my district, there were 75 shootings. In 2023, there were 107 shootings. I mentioned earlier that I have communities in my district that utilize technology called ShotSpotter, and that sometimes ShotSpotter is the only thing that alerts law enforcement that there's been a shooting, because some of those communities are so immune to hearing gunshots, they don't call the police anymore. We talk about law-abiding, responsible gun owners, but to me, that is such an oxymoron when we think about, first of all, law-abiding citizens. We have no way, this bill takes away law enforcement's ability to see if those carrying guns are law-abiding. And then when we talk about responsible gun owners want and need training. And I appreciate all of the amendments that have been put up by my colleagues, especially all of those who sat here at the well and admitted that training is a good thing. But we certainly need to make sure that we don't wait for the will of people to get training and then spend state paying dollars to give people training. We should be mandating training. If someone wants a gun in this state, they need to know the gun laws. We will have 18-year-olds carrying guns, not knowing whether or not they have the ability to protect themselves in certain situations. As a lawyer myself, when I took the CWP training, I learned things about our gun laws in this state. Our law enforcement continuously gets training to make sure that they understand what the laws are in this state. But now we are asking citizens, starting as young as 18, to just know what the laws are and to be able to carry guns with no ability or no demand that they get training. We talk about people wanting this bill, but as I get people, and I'm the elected official who, no matter if I agree with you or not, when you call me, when you email me, I'm going to talk to you about what your position is. When I talk to citizens about what this bill is, and we use the terms of constitutional carry, yes, people believe in their right to carry arms. I believe in the Second Amendment. But when you tell people that this gun does not require training, does not require a permit, does not require a background check, people are mortified. They do not understand that this is what is going to pass today. And what will happen is we will give people the expectation of, yes, I have a right to carry a gun, but then all the other things that go along with it, they're not going to know. We are setting our citizens and our state up for failure. We are setting ourselves up for a more dangerous community. So when I think about the citizens of District 19 as they call me and say, Senator, make my community safer, I'm going to go back to them today and tell them, not only have I not been able to make your community safer today, but we, the Senate today, have now made your community less safe. It has made our children less safe. I have sat with moms who have lost children due to gun violence, and I'm going to have to sit with them and tell them that now we have taken away law enforcement's ability to keep their communities more safe. I want to thank the ladies, the members of Moms Demand Action for being here every single day. You all have fought, you've been here, and I appreciate you all being here. Safer Communities of the Midlands, a very new organization within my district because of the gun violence in my district. I thank you for being here. And I just hope that we all will look at this bill as it passes and then continue to advocate, because our work is cut out for us. Not only has the work that we've done up to this point been ignored, but now we have more things to do. We have to educate our communities, we have to mobilize our communities, and we need to make sure that people understand what this law says. And hopefully, the members of this Senate, after some time, once this passes, will realize what we've done and come back and fix it. And for those reasons, I will not be voting for this bill.
Thank you, Senator from Richland. Senator from Orangeburg, Senator Stevens, what purpose do you rise, sir?
Speak towards the bill.
Recognized on the bill. Senator, as he comes to the podium, Senator from Richland, Senator McLeod, what purpose do you rise? State your request, state your unanimous consent request.
To have the words of the other senator from, the newest senator from Richland recorded in the journal.
Without objection, the words from the senator will be recorded in the journal. So,
Sorry.
further unanimous consent, what state your request?
For the words of the senator from Clarendon to be recorded in the journal as well.
Without objection, so ordered. Senator from Orangeburg, Senator Stevens is recognized to speak on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. And thanks to my colleagues who, over the past week, have sat as we deliberated this bill. I could not sit back any longer and not express myself concerning open carry, constitutional carry act, without reflecting back on my hometown of Bowman, with a population of just under 1,000. In May of 2020, we lost 3 high school students and 5 others. 3 died, 5 was injured. And those 3 that died was high school students. April 4th of 2022, there was a Bowman woman shot to death and a Bowman man that was injured. February the 3rd of 2022, a 42-year-old Bowman man was shot to death. August the 23rd of 2023, a 32-year-old Bowman man was shot to death. October the 2023, a Bowman man critically injured. Those are just a few of the shooting incidents that have occurred in that small town in the last 3 years. There was many other shootings. By God's grace, those individuals survived. I have no disregard for anyone's Second Amendment rights. I too have guns, which are in my possession at home, safely stored away, and I've been trained. But my feelings today is that there are some major disadvantages to open carry that may lead to a higher risk of accidental death. And I believe also that when guns are actually being displayed, the possibility of stress by someone else who is in that close proximity of that gun, strange things will happen. Strange things happen in the line of children wanting to play with guns because mom and dad are now allowed to have guns readily available. And to my colleague from Clarendon County, I truly believe that a couple of seconds makes a lot of difference in whether a person lives or dies. I believe if that gun is in a glove compartment that is locked, or in a console that may be locked, those couple of seconds could prove fatal. Those couple of seconds could be just enough to calm that individual down who want to go and get that gun and probably take someone's life. Everybody is not comfortable carrying a gun. Everybody is not trained to carry a gun or to use a gun. And if it's mishandled or misused, it could actually result in the lives of someone innocently or in the life of the person who have the gun. Open carry, I believe, makes you a target. As mentioned earlier, it makes it seem like this is the wild, wild west. I heard the senator from Berkeley mention that he was at the ATM machine and a couple guys came running up and he pulled up his shirt or his jacket and they saw his gun. There's a flip side to that story, as I believe, that it could have actually been those other two persons who ran up could have had guns as well. So it could have been actually an exchange of gunfire with multiple persons injured or even killed. The accessibility of guns is dangerous. but inability to understand and to use guns properly is dangerous. And I don't believe in this state that we should go down this road. I believe if you listen to the masses of citizens of the state of South Carolina, they will tell you that I want my Second Amendment rights, but I want to make sure that the other person understand, as well as I do, that I need to be very careful in my branding of my gun. Branding is no more than standing out there with your gun on the strap on your side. Careful uses of the gun and understanding its effects. It's a sad day for me in this state. May not be for a lot of you, but it's a sad day for me when we legislate such that will put so many others in harm's way. And we're saying we're doing right by our people or by our citizens. I think just the opposite. It is time that we come to the realization that some of what we are doing is not in the best interest of the citizens of South Carolina. I don't want to bring racism into the scenario, but it's here. I believe that our police should be protected. And I believe what we had earlier would do just that. But now we are opening up where they feel insecure. Yes, I've had the opportunity to speak with police chiefs, county sheriffs, as well as deputies. And they all fear this piece of legislation. These are the persons who are out there on a daily basis. They know what is going on. But are we listening to a great degree? No. So then are we actually advocating for those individuals who actually sent us here to voice their concerns? I'd answer that question and say, no. And it's high time, ladies and gentlemen, that we do just that. And with that being said, I cannot, in my right mind, go back to my community and say that I voted yes for this piece of legislation. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator from Orangeburg. The pending question is third reading of the bill. Senator from Williamsburg, what purpose do you rise?
Unanimous consent request.
State your request.
Leave the senior senator from Orangeburg, Senator Hutto, for the balance of the day.
Senator Hutto, granted leave, unanimous consent for the rest of the day. Senator from Marion, what purpose do you
Unanimous consent request.
state your request?
That the words of the senator from Orangeburg be printed in the journal.
Without objection, Senator from Orangeburg, Senator Stevens' words will be printed in the journal. Senator from Horry, Senator Hembry, what purpose do you rise?
Unanimous consent request.
State your request.
Leave for the senator from Charleston, Senator Campson, for the balance of the day.
Unanimous consent for the Senator from Charleston, Senator Campson, leave for the remainder of the day. That is granted. Any further unanimous consent request? Seeing none, the clerk has rung the bell. We are prepared to go to the roll call. This is third reading of H3594. The reading clerk will please call the roll of the Senate.
Mr. Adams. Not voting, Mr. Alexander. Aye. Aye. Mr. Allen. No. Mr. Bennett. Mr. Bennett votes aye. Mr. Campson has leave. Mr. Cash. Aye. Mr. Clymer. Aye. Mr. Corbin. Aye. Mr. Cromer. Aye. Mr. Davis. Aye. Mrs. Devine. No. Mr. Fanning. Aye. Mr. Gambrell. Aye. Mr. Garrett. Aye. Mr. Goldfinch. Aye. Mr. Grooms. Aye. Mrs. Gustafson. Aye. Mr. Harpootlian. No. Mr. Hembry. Aye. Mr. Hutto has leave. Mr. Jackson. No. Mr. Kevin Johnson. No. Mr. Michael Johnson. Aye. Mr. Kimbrell. Not voting, Mr. Loftus. Mr. Loftus votes aye. Mr. Malloy. No. Mr. Martin. Aye. Mr. Massey. Aye. Mrs. Matthews. No. Mr. McElveen. No. Mr. McLeod. No. Mr. Peeler. Aye. Mr. Rankin. No. Mr. Rickenbaugh. Aye. Mr. Rice. Aye. Mr. Sabb. No. Mrs. Sin. Not voting, Mr. Setzler. No. Mrs. Shealy. Aye. Mr. Stevens. No. Mr. Talley. Not voting, Mr. Tedder. No. Mr. Turner. Aye. Mr. Verdon. Aye. Mr. Williams. No. Mr. Young. Aye.
Senator from Charleston, Senator Sin votes aye. Senator Adams votes aye. Further members wishing to cast, Senator from Greenville, Senator Turner, what purpose do you rise, sir?
For leave for the senator from Spartanburg, Senator Talley, for the remainder of the day.
Without objection, the senator from Spartanburg, Senator Talley, has leave for the remainder of the day. Further, Senator from Newberry, Senator Cromer votes aye. Senator Cromer votes aye. Senator Kimbrell votes aye. Further members of the Senate wishing to record your vote on third reading of H3594. Seeing and hearing no further votes, the polls are closed and the clerk will tabulate. Members of the Senate, the vote is 28 in favor, 15 opposed. The bill receives third reading of the Senate. Senator from Edgefield, what purpose do you rise?
Mr. President, I want to see if there are any unanimous consent requests or announcements before we adjourn for the week. Mr. President.
Senator from Edgefield.
I move the Senate do now adjourn.
The motion is that the Senate do now adjourn. Those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Senate stands adjourned to meet Tuesday at 12 o'clock noon.
All right, I'm back. I'm gonna turn it off now. I'm sure everybody's pissed off. I am too. But I had to go take care of shit. It's nothing I can do about it. All right, guys. I don't know. I don't know if they voted on it. But apparently they're not going to go back to work until Tuesday next week. So there's your tax dollars at work. They don't fucking do their job. So it makes me angry. Let me check what they did. Let's see. They did roll call ayes and nays. Okay, they amended it. Read third time and returned to House with amendments. Roll call ayes and nays. So where is it? Okay, so what the situation is, let's see if I can get a copy of this. That's not what I want. There we go. All right. Here, hold on. I will give this to you. I will put this in the chat for you guys. All right. Here's where it is right now. They returned it to the House. So I went through the Senate. They amended it and sent it to the House. The House has to go and either pass it with those amendments or amend it and send it back. So that's where we're at. Is it going to go? Well, now it's up to the House. If the House does, then who knows? Who knows? Anyways, there it is. We'll be back. We'll be back when, you know, they figure it out on the House. So with that, thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys later. Take it easy. We're gonna do the Friday night strike this week too on Rumble. So if you can, make sure to check us out at 7:15 p.m. Eastern, 6:15 p.m. Central, and I think it's like 4:15 p.m. Pacific. I don't know. I know. Yeah, you're right. You're right, Grover's Gold Standard. You're right. Exactly. Absolutely. So the problem is we need to start voting not for the incumbent Republican, but for new Republicans that are more pro-gun than they are. And we need to make sure that we don't vote independents into office. Just because they're running as an independent instead of a Democrat doesn't mean they aren't still a Democrat. You saw her still wearing a mask. That means she's not a Republican. That means she's a Democrat. And the only reason she got elected was because she ran as an independent. But she's a Democrat in sheep's clothing. Anyways, on that, we'll see you later, guys. You guys take it easy, and we'll see you on the next one. Shut up, infringed!